The Globals map is already changing and we have some big team swaps. We have Clix moving drops. We have Cooper now uncontested. Alex, OCE's best trio, now being surprise contested. MrSavage is now only being conned by Veno. I want to talk about who's swapping where, who's doing well, and how I think the spawn fights are going to go coming into Globals. I also want to recap my thoughts on the meta so far and why I think this might actually be one of the best seasons of competitive Fortnite we've ever had. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. I was hoping to make this video after the Eval Cup. We finally got blessed with a tournament only 2 days into the new season. I thought, that's it. This is going to be fantastic to see how the pros are doing, where they're dropping, what's going on, and it just didn't work. We've been having a whole bunch of bugs that unfortunately are still happening, that it looks like a bunch of people crash when they're playing in tournament settings. It only seems to happen in tournaments or scrims which are run on tournament settings. And originally we thought it was going to be the new performance mode. A bunch of the scrim managers around the world tried to say turn off performance mode and it should fix it. It didn't fix it. At this point, we have no idea what's forcing so many people to crash, and it's messing things up a little bit. I hope Fortnite has fixed it for the tournaments this week, but if you're wondering why I didn't make a video after the Eval Cup, that's why. I really wanted to do a full breakdown, but none of the games really worked or counted. They got paid out. The players still won games, but most lobbies started with like 60 or 70 people. So it just kind of made it weird to talk about as a real tournament. But we've now had some pro scrims that have actually ran, and I get to talk about where some of the pros are switching their drops for Globals and how they're looking. And the biggest one, I'm sure you're expecting me to talk about this, Clix, Higgs, and Iomzo leaving OXR to then go over and contest Phaser, King, and PH Zin at Supernova. Now, last video I made, I talked about how Clix made a statement how he wasn't leaving. He's happy to throw his Globals being contested if he has to, but he's staying there and he doesn't want a big drama farm out of it. He's just not leaving. And then he left. But to be fair, I think Clix has the right idea with this spawn fight. I think this spawn fight makes a lot more sense for him. I think Clix believes that he can get King's team to move, where he knows that Vanya, Pixie, and Marius weren't going to move. So his best chance of doing well at Globals is to get uncon Supernova. Now, there's a few concerns there. Firstly, how are they actually going to get King to leave? And honestly, Clix hasn't really been seeing that much spawn fighting. We haven't seen Clix, Higgs, and Iomzo spawn fight really anyone. And historically, most of the players have decent off-spawn reps. Like, they're all good players, they're all good fighters, but we just haven't seen them con that much. And I was a little bit worried for Clix after seeing them in the Eval Cup. The Eval Cup, again, there wasn't a single game where King's whole trio loaded in, but there was a couple games where even as a duo, they still managed to put some good pressure on Clix, taking down Iomzo. Clix had to disengage, reboot, come back. They weren't clean spawn fights, but Clix definitely didn't just dominate them like he should have in a 3v2. But Clix has spent the last few days locking in with none other than Frodoxy, Mr. Offspawn himself, and is looking way better. Like, this is honestly the same improvement I saw from Clix's surge trading and surge tagging before playing with Veno, when it was just one of his biggest weaknesses, to by the end of it being one of his biggest strengths. And right now, only after a few days, Clix is looking way better off spawn. In today's pro scrims, they managed to go head to head 3 times, and Clix, Higgs, and Iomzo won all 3 of them. They managed to win all 3 spawn fights in a row, and then King's team got off and didn't play session 2. Now, in King's defense, if you guys are jumping on this and saying, oh, they've left already, they've given up, they're quitting scrims, there was still the crashing bug happening today. They were having to rerun the pro scrims multiple times just to get one game where people weren't crashing. So I'm guessing Phaser, PH Zin, and King just couldn't be bothered waiting around. To be fair, dying on spawn, waiting half an hour, queuing up again, going in, crashing, having to leave, re-queuing, going in again, dying. It would have been pretty bad on the mental, but it's worth pointing out Clix's team did 3-0 them. And I feel like Clix actually pulled a lot of the weight in these spawn fights and was looking really good. If you've watched any of Clix's streams at the moment, he's just doing all off spawns. He spent 7 hours doing off spawn tokens with other professional players, and then in between every session of scrims was doing 2v2 off spawns, him and Frodoxy versus Higgs and Iomzo. It's gone from being something Clix never does to now being the main focus. And as we've seen, like I said, with things like his surge tagging, once Clix seems to fixate on something in his game, he gets a lot better. So there is a chance potentially King's team will leave, but it is worth pointing out King was there first. Clix is trying to, he's talking about on his stream about how they're contesting him, but I don't think King would have ever gone Supernova if Clix stayed there after last Grands. Clix marks the OXR base, that's where he wanted to go, said he wasn't leaving, and now he's going Supernova. So as much as I don't think Clix is going to leave Supernova, it seems like they're fully locked in on spawn fighting this at Globals. It's kind of a bad look for King's team if they just leave as soon as they're contested. Oh, Clix is coming, we better give up the drop, because it's going to be really hard for them to claim anything else on the map. Potentially, you could argue leaving without losing would have been a better look than losing and now leaving, but it's going to be a tough one. I honestly don't know if King is going to leave or not. I can't give a solid guess. I don't know the players that well on a personal level, and while they are currently losing off spawn, it could have been a bad day for them. It's only 3 games. We saw how big of a difference and changes throughout spawn fights you can see with Pete versus Poyo as teams start to practice. It is worth pointing out as well, I mentioned last season, Supernova is a really bad spawn fight if you want to start playing to grief a little bit. Right now, both teams are 50-50 dropping the main building, fighting it out. Whoever does well goes on to have a good game. But if the other team starts to play a little bit messy, start playing dirty, they're over the spawn fight, they can start dropping on the other half of Supernova, taking the loot, running away, drawing out the fight, and both of them will do terrible at globals. So I don't know whether King is going to do that, but right now, while they're straight 50-50 in fighting, it's good for both teams, but King doesn't have to leave just to make it worse for Clix. So I'm not really sure how this one's going to play out. It is also worth mentioning, I know last grand finals, Clix Higgs Yomzo struggled out of Supernova. Whenever they got a South Zone, Yomzo talked about how they couldn't trade their Surge, things didn't go to plan, and they just messed up their strategy. So what's going to change for globals? And I think that is a valid concern. I think Clix's team will be a lot more prepared going into it for the Surge trading. I think if they end up getting it uncontested, they have some good options around them, especially Kanata, Rapid, and Bolt to their south on the mountain. They've got Queasy uncontested to their west, at least right now. They have Pixie to their south and southeast, which is where they just left. I think they do have plenty of options, and I think they will be better prepared. They do have the Fizzberry launch off the rail at Supernova that sends you to basically Narnia. That is so ridiculous for any South zones they get. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a concern. I think if Clix doesn't end up getting uncontested, they will do quite well. And it's worth mentioning, Supernova did get nerfed, but with the new hot drop mechanic, the loot drones that spawn sometimes, it is insane. If Fortnite keeps these loot drones in competitive, it is going to be ridiculous, especially for Surge trading. Each drone drops sometimes 3 big pods and 2 Fizzberry jars from one drone. The loot that I saw Clix's team get today in scrims when they got the hot drop was insane. It might be the best loot on the map. So I have no idea how that's going to play out depending on whether they're contested or not. I don't know if Fortnite plans on leaving the loot drones in competitive. At this point, I think they will, but Supernova is not a bad drop. The other major change to the off-spawn situations for globals is Reek, Cooper, and Curly are now no longer contested. We've had Focus, Mixon, and Upper leave first order base, and they're now dropping on Shogun. They were dropping down to actually contest Shogun, which I thought was a little bit crazy, but I guess they knew they could get it uncontested, as Merrim's team has now gone from dropping on Shogun to the south split to the east of it. And it is worth pointing out, Focus's team actually just qualified 2 globals from Shogun, so they've done really well from it recently. Shogun has also been buffed, so I think that's going to be a very good sign for them, potentially being able to then hold that one down. We did also have a move on the drop spots. We now have MrSavage only being single contested. It is worth pointing out this has changed literally as I'm making the video. I've just seen the team switch, which is kind of crazy because this is a live drop map. Chap, MrSavage, and Rezon are now only going up against Vico, Veno, and Flixie, as the Brazilians, Striker, Tisco, and Cadu have switched drops to contest OCE. Resigns, Alex, and Anon are now getting contested at Outlaw, which is great for the Savage fans. Now Savage's team only has to go up against Veno, but that's still going to be a very tough spawn fight. That's still 2 phenomenal teams going at it. At what is a really good drop, Canyon is very solid, especially now with the new OXR chest that it's getting on the map. Doesn't get the forecast anymore, but they're looking pretty solid. But seeing the Brazilians leave and now contest OCE's finest is a bit unfortunate. Alex's team right now is what a lot of OCE fans are looking at to get potentially OCE's best placement at an international LAN, but now being contested, that's going to be a little bit tough. At this point, the rest of the drop map looks pretty normal. We still have Acorn's team being uncontested at Demons. We have Swizzy being uncontested at the Hive. They are still 2 of the absolute favorites to dominate this globals if things stay like that. We still have the 3-way spawn fight between Fredoxy, Tayson, and Peterbot. It is worth mentioning, I've talked to Fredoxy about this. He still plans on staying there. He has agreed that the medallion is kind of useless here. It's really not that strong. It's 4 times slower than the Demon's Domain medallion. It's not going to be as good for Surge trading. We had Peterbot actually get on and play 1 game of scrims today with Ritual. Cold is away right now, so Cold wasn't playing. And we did hear Peterbot also complaining about the medallion, saying it's quite weak, saying also that the drop spot isn't looking that great either. So I don't know whether there's a chance we actually see Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot leave the 3-way spawn fight that's going on there right now. I have predicted that I think they might, especially once this team realizes just how good the movement medallions are, and Queasy and Acorn right now are uncontested. I don't know whether we're going to see Pete and Poyo go at it at globals. That would be ridiculous, but right now there is some kind of rumblings over there in that 3-way spawn fight that makes me think at least one of them might be leaving. I know you guys are normally used to me doing like a bit of like a loot pool recap. What do I think needs to be changed? What do I think needs to be balanced? But right now in the season, things are looking pretty good. I haven't obviously been able to see too many tournament games. I've watched a few of the pro scrim games, and right now it's looking really balanced. I'm not going to talk about ranks. I know the Swarm Strike is annoying a lot of people. The Shockwave Launcher is super common. I'm talking purely about competitive. I could see maybe the Revolver Shotgun's range being nerfed a little bit. It is incredibly strong, but I think that's what makes the gun solid and makes it worthwhile carrying. I think if you nerf the range damage too much, I don't know if that will make its pick rate go down a lot, because obviously the striker is still better close range, but the fast fire rate on it and the close bullet spread when you ADS does still make it worth carrying, so I could maybe see the range being nerfed a little bit. I think the minigun used in certain situations is very strong. The build structure damage is insane, but the player damage isn't that high. I've seen some teams running it in the eval opens to try to, you know, apply pressure down as a trio while the other teams spray and get their way in, but overall I don't think it was super busted, especially because it eats through ammunition so quickly. And then if you want to carry it, you're having to give up something else that's really solid, because the loot pool, there is a lot of really solid options to carry. Now, the Bug Blaster, we did get to see a clip from Clix where him, Yomzo, and Higgs were doing the full charge Bug Blaster and just instantly wiping teams. It kind of gave me the vibes of the triple bird attack. Maybe that should probably be balanced in some way, but I don't see many people carrying the Bug Blaster that much or that often. And if you do, again, you're giving up some really good slots, so maybe that. But honestly, this might be one of the most balanced metas I've ever seen. There's really, really good loot pool choices. Everyone's loadouts are super diverse. There's no one loadout that everyone's running. This isn't just like last season where everyone was running a Spire AR, Sentinel Pump, running the Bird or Dashes, and then double meds. Everyone had the same loadout. Now, there's a lot of diversity, a lot of people arguing and trying to choose what is the best loadout, and I absolutely love that. I think we might have one of the best metas coming into Globals. Obviously, I would love it if Fortnite could find a way to, you know, get rid of surge trading. Yes, I'm not going to try and pretend that isn't a little bit more boring to watch. I think at Globals, with some of these huge profile off spawn fights leading into a really exciting mid game, should carry a lot of that vibes. And like I've said, at this point, the only way Fortnite can fix surge trading or get rid of it is to redesign how surge works. And I would rather them wait until after Globals to do that, in case it does make the game significantly worse. I'd rather go into Globals with surge trading, but they're not making that big of a change right before Globals. At least me personally, but for the rest of it, I think this is going to be a really, really fun and really exciting season.